In today's business world, change is the only constant, and mastering transformation is the ultimate key to success. Welcome to Shift and Thrive. I'm your host, Natalie Nathanson. Each week, we'll bring you conversations with CEOs who delve into how they successfully drove critical change in their organization. This show is sponsored by Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service B2B marketing agency. I am super excited to dive into today's conversation. Our guest is a visionary leader on the forefront of business technology services, bringing clients best of breed in copy, print, and IT managed services. After working for a Fortune 500, he spent the last 19 years in his current company, holding positions in sales, delivery, and management before stepping into his current role as president. He's an honored winner of the Power 50 Award and a respected member of the Forbes Business Council. He's also a member of YPO and loves connecting with other leaders. He is president of the nationally recognized and family-owned Loffler Companies. Please welcome James Loffler to the show.
Hi, Natalie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you, James.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So, James, let's talk about driving change. I wanted to start by asking you, what would you say is the biggest misconception out there about successfully driving major change in an organization?
Driving change in an organization. You know, it sounds simple, but it's not easy to drive change in an organization. I think a lot of times people think as an executive team, you can understand the changes that need to be made, document those, communicate those, and quickly it will take root in your organization. And the reality is, from my experience, that change takes a lot of communication, takes a lot of gathering information from key people on your leadership teams and from the front line. I think even before you set out on a change, it's important to make sure you sit down with key stakeholders from different organizations or different parts of the company to really understand the effect and make sure that the outcomes that you want to have will actually take place. After the change is communicated, I think that there's still a lot of care and feeding that needs to take place. I know that me personally, after I've been a part of a big change, it's something that I stay involved in. It's something that I regularly will skip levels to go down and talk to key people to make sure that I understand that that change is being received the way that we intended it to be received, and that we're able to make small adjustments along the way just to make sure that it's as effective as possible.
Yeah, I think that's so true, and this is a topic that keeps coming up. I really like what you say about the care feeding and the skip levels, and I think it can be easy and tempting to get kind of stuck in kind of the executive team and the leadership team arena, but needing to also really understand, right, the whole organization and the whole team, the people on the front lines, as you called them, are the ones talking to the customers and talking to prospects, and who ultimately are the ones kind of carrying the torch of a lot of these changes.
Yeah, and I think that we're not a big company, right? We've got about 550 employees, but we've got multiple locations, and so another level that I think is just making sure that through change, people are feeling that they're heard. And I think as an executive team, right, we really are intentional about our communication, whether it's a Friday update that talks about all the changes going on specifically for that week, or quarterly reviews where we document our strategic plan and how we're tracking the goals. But to have those one-on-one conversations with key stakeholders, I think it goes a long way in making sure that your team feels that you care and that you really know what's going on in their world, which makes all the difference from a cultural standpoint in driving that change.
For sure. I'm interested in your perspective. Why do you think there is that misconception out there? Why do people think it's kind of easier than it is, or that you can tell people once and they'll kind of receive the message in full?
Yeah. I think there's lessons learned along the way, right? So I've been a part of quite a few changes as a technology company, a growing technology company. You have to constantly innovate. And when you're innovating, you have to change. And a lot of times I tell my team, it's like a it's like a weightlifting or a workout routine, right? You can make change and you realize great gains, and then you get to a plateau where you need to pivot. And so the reason I say that is because I've learned the hard way along the way. I've made changes. A common mistake that I made in the past is that I would get input from certain team members, but realize that I would then communicate that change all at one time versus doing a staggered approach where I would tell my leadership team, and then I would roll it out to my managers. And then I would actually share my communication with the organizational leaders, letting them know that that change is coming at 1:00 today, so that those folks can be prepared to answer any questions and they feel like they're equipped to carry the Loffler flag. And those are just things that you learn along the way. So hopefully someone can learn from my lessons along the way.
Yep. It certainly helps. We all have the battle scars of what we've learned, and hopefully we learn from our mistakes and then don't make the same mistake twice. We can move forward and make new ones.
Yep.
Yeah. I like how you talk about kind of equipping the team, and right, you want to make sure that the team feels empowered, and as it moves through the different levels in the organization, really being able to bring kind of the right messages at the right time to everyone.
Yeah. Again, to touch on that a little bit, that has been, I think, a part of our successful communication strategy, to where I'll actually draft a document that will announce that organizational change. And then I will actually let the team review that and give feedback. And there's a lot of little things in there that they give me great feedback on, as far as how that message will sit with different parts of the team, right? So they think about things that maybe I didn't think about. Usually it's very little, it's very subtle, but it makes a difference in the end. And so that feedback, that I can go ahead, edit that message, make sure that it addresses our team members in the very best way. And then again, giving them a heads up that it'll come out at a certain time, it has been effective for us.
Yeah. I'd love to hear a bit more about, how do you collect feedback? What are the kind of methods or processes for that?
We're always, one of the things I preach about in our manager meetings is that we need to end as many conversations as possible with, how can I help you? What's getting in your way? And I like to ground all of the conversations with that. A lot of times team members don't have it, but I think it sets an expectation that as a leadership team, we're here to support you, and your opinions and your perspective and your insights into our business are important to us. And so that's definitely something where we'll collect information through our general communication. We regularly survey our employees and ask them for feedback across all areas of the company. We try to do that in a succinct format that doesn't change, so that we can benchmark our results quarter after quarter and try to glean some trends. Are we trending in the right direction in certain areas like culture? How are our communications being received? How are our benefits? How is our pay? Do people feel supported? Are they buying into our vision? That's just a few of the questions that we have. But that's one of the things. At a manager level, we meet on a monthly basis in a roundtable format, and we try to have an open microphone to where managers can ask us questions, and we can just have an open dialogue about what's going on in our business. And it's not up to the executive team to solve all the problems, right? We've hired incredible employees, some of the best team members in the United States, and we want to hear their perspective on how to solve those problems. And I think it's been a key to our success.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like the way you're describing it is the how can I help you question is the servant leadership style, which I think goes over well. And then having that kind of open and transparent culture, because I think without that, you can ask people for feedback, but if they don't feel comfortable asking honestly, it doesn't get you very far, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And I like too, how you're talking about asking the same questions in the feedback survey, and that doesn't change, because benchmarking those kind of results, as you say, you can really measure, positive and negative trends, and be clear on what you're trying to impact and where.
Exactly.
Yeah. So James, you clearly have a lot of experience being part of change and leading change. I wanted to ask a little bit, can you tell me what is the biggest change that you've driven in an organization?
Yeah, I think, there's a saying at Loffler we have, when it comes to change, we try to make change a evolution, not a revolution. And so how do we step into those changes? And I think probably the biggest change that I've taken the organization through is actually one I'm in the middle of right now. And so at Loffler Companies, we were founded in 1986, and a lot of people know us for being a leader in the copy print space. Over the last 18 years, we've also built out a nationally recognized IT solutions part of our business. Both of those organizations had dedicated sales teams. And so if you were to sit down with a client would have two reps from Loffler. They would have one that would talk to them about copy print, and they would have one that would talk to them about an IT solutions within the company. As we look to the future, part of our collective strength as an organization is really how we bring multiple solutions together for a client and design those. And I looked at that and said, look, we need to have one person representing all of the Loffler solutions. And so this year, or I should say, it was announced at the end of last year that we actually unified our sales organization. So instead of having two teams that would work with a client, we now have one dedicated team member that represents and consults with our clients on the entire Loffler technology stack. As you can imagine, at the surface, it makes a lot of sense for the client. And we actually interviewed a lot of clients before we moved into this and consulted with other organizations and felt like it was the right decision. But you can imagine, change is hard for people. And if you've been in a sales role for 15 years, all of a sudden we're introducing new products, we're introducing systems and processes that are different than what folks are used to. And so that's definitely one of the largest changes that I've led the organization through. And obviously it has a lot to it, moving parts.
Yep. I'm curious to hear a little bit more, at the outset of a big change like that, what were your biggest concerns going into it? And then, were those the ones that you experienced along the way, or, were there different things that you found yourself and your team kind of grappling with?
Yeah. I always think about our people first. Like I said, we've got some of the best people. And when it comes to change, that's what I think about, right? I try to empathize, right? And I know just about all of our sales team members, and I try to empathize with them, understand how it's going to affect them. In many cases, try to get in front of it, have conversations, and really make sure we're communicating the why behind those things. So I start with the people. I try to understand where we're at. I try to tailor a solution. I think if there's anything else that concerns me, it's disruption, right? We've got a very detailed business plan, and we always try to balance the day-to-day tasks, right? Here's the engine, here's the assembly line of our success. And anytime you introduce a new concept or new strategy into that, there's going to be somewhat of a slowdown in that assembly line as people's attention, resources refocus. And so I think those are the two areas: people and distraction.
Yep. I've seen that a bit myself, I think, on the kind of distraction piece and figuring out when is the right time to share with everyone, right? Because on the one hand, you want to communicate to the team, early and often, so it's not a surprise.
Right.
And people have a chance to kind of process the change. On the flip side, if you wait too long, then you're not bringing people along, and that can create more more disruption, especially when the reality is we can't stop running the day-to-day.
Right.
We want to keep serving the clients with the same level of service and value that they expect, and ideally even more, right, on the other end of the change.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up, because it's such a reality when it comes to big changes like that. I feel as a leadership team, as you work through those, you look at all of the work that needs to be done, and as leaders, we want to be perfect, right? We want to design a perfect change management, but I've also realized that it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be received by 100% of people in the very perfect way. And so as a team, I think you just need to focus on designing something that meets 90% of the requirements and get it as good as you can, because I feel like if you chase 100%, you'll probably won't be able to keep up with the pace of innovation because you're chasing perfection. And so there's a fine line I feel you need to walk, right? As you plot your growth and you plot your innovation, you got to do your very best, get as much as you can. But if you wait for perfection, it'll probably slow you down.
Right. What do people say? Done is better than perfect, but it still needs to be good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's where that, circle back, keep checking in, circle back, keep checking in. And you can make the little changes along the way.
Were there any areas that you felt were hardest for you as a leader, either that like stretched new or different leadership muscles, or things that maybe were different than what you expected at the outset?
Good question. I think as the organizations get larger, I think there's, especially when it comes to a large change like that, where you need to be the face of change. You need to be the advocate of change, but you also need to make sure that you're empowering your team members to help walk their team members through the change. I think maybe sometimes as leaders, we would want to just get in there and because we're passionate about it, we want to do it right. We want everybody to be in a great spot. But sometimes I have a tendency where maybe I can reach in a little too far with some of my managers to say, well, I'll just take care of it. And I need to make sure that I continue to empower them to be a part of that change.
Sure. That makes sense. I think, as you said, as the company grows, your profile and what that looks like and all of that needs to evolve. And I think being the face of change isn't always so straightforward, right? I know for myself, there's always a balance of being confident in the strategic direction and communicating that and communicating the rationale, but also showing some vulnerability, right? So as leaders, we don't have all the answers. We don't know exactly how things will end up. And so striking that right balance that you're instilling the confidence and being kind of authentic to the team.
Absolutely. Great point.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you talked about this being a change that you're in the midst of and rolled it out, it sounds like six or more months ago now. Can you talk a little bit about, what's ahead for you and what is the biggest, priority that you're focused on currently for this transition?
Yeah. For us, I think if I had to give it a title, it would be the successful implementation of the unified sales team at Loffler. That's how it's branded here within our organization. And there's still a lot of work that needs to be done behind the scenes. As you can imagine, when you make a change like that, there's a lot of system changes from CRM to reporting and dashboarding, from marketing strategies that need to be implemented and tweaked, from systems alignment, an incredible amount of training that's been taking place, right? As we introduce new technology and new solutions to the sales organization, there's ongoing training and really just stepping in alongside the sales organization to really support that. Our hope is we'll see the success in the sales numbers, and we're starting to see the trends of that. I think our expectation was that there would be obviously a ramp up period. And so I would say we're in the middle of that ramp up period right now. And all signs point to a successful transition.
That's great. Even just hearing the different areas that you're calling out, you can see the complexity in that, right? Like the systems, the incentives, the training. I'm curious to, unpack a few of those.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So maybe starting with systems, right? As like the technical foundations, what are things that you had to do differently? And, what did you do internally and where did you look at kind of outside support to enable that?
Yeah. So, from us, if you think about with a sales organization, the foundation of their system is CRM. So we run a Microsoft Dynamics CRM platform, and all of a sudden, all of our territories were changed. So that meant our team had to go in and remap all of the territories and reassign all of the different accounts, and the sales managers had to work with quite a few folks on the overlap of those accounts. And so you can imagine it's time intensive. We also have a lot of integration set up. The reality is that as much as I wish all of Loffler was on one system, we're not. We're on multiple back-end systems, and there's a lot of custom integration that we built to really make sure that it's as easy as possible for our end users. And so simple things like if there's an update in our Microsoft Dynamics, that customer information will populate to our service systems, so that when a client calls in our operations side, we understand where they're at in the sales process. That way we're not stepping on toes. So all of those integrations need to be updated, and we need to train all of those team members on how to properly enter that information and keep that information up to date. So that's probably one of the bigger ones. Obviously, entering new opportunities. What does it look like from qualifying those opportunities and getting the right data in? And then there's a lot of sales support individuals within the organization that have tools and dashboards to monitor where sales folks are at in the stage, so that they can come in at the right cycle and support those folks. So again, those had to be updated and trained on. So it was definitely a heavy lift.
Yeah. Were there, new roles that you created or hired for to support this, or new skill sets to bring into the organization?
Yeah, actually, an entire new team was created, which was called our customer success team. So we've got a group of folks that now, as a customer success, is really focused on a client after they become a customer. And so instead of being compensated on net new sales, they're compensated on client satisfaction. They're compensated on making sure that they've got a robust technology plan in place that's really tied to our customers' strategic plan. And in the end, that really helps us drive results for our customers. And so that team, once you become a Loffler client, they're really focused on effectively managing and growing and helping that customer succeed. And then we've got the unified sales team that's really out leading the charge, talking about new products and services, as well as additional products and services in the markets that we serve.
Sure. You touched on kind of incentives and making sure that that's all aligned. That's something that I find so interesting and can be so hard to get right. You can kind of over engineer, and then it becomes too complex. You can set an intention with the best of intention, so to speak, in mind, and then it can backfire. So curious, from kind of a team standpoint, like how did you put those right incentives in place for the different teams?
Yeah, a lot of our homework was done by networking with companies like Loffler in the technology space, and lucky to have a lot of friends in the industry. And so it's always nice to be able to call on them and learn from their experiences, much like we're doing today. And so we benchmarked that. I think, a trend for us is really focused on making it as simple as possible. So a lot of our programs revolve around a monthly contract versus maybe a product and percentage. And so that's starting to simplify our compensation programs.
Yeah. And then, the other area that you touched on was marketing strategies, which is obviously near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Tell me, how have you thought about that through the journey?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for Loffler is that since 1986, we've grown as an organization, and we've got a very diverse portfolio of technology solutions. So copy printers, unified communications, physical security, IT managed services, cyber security as a service, and even more in addition to that, right? And so for our clients, that's a lot to consume. And so we've spent a lot around marketing, talking a lot more about target customer profile and talking more about how to tell a really unified story to our client that lands well with them, that's relevant for them. So again, starting with target customer profile and the story is what we build a marketing campaign around. That's something that you've been able to help us with, and that's really kind of a platform for all the other marketing activities that we have, whether it's filling top of funnel with, doing all the Google keyword searches or a targeted campaign or educational events, those really lead to the top of funnel through that target customer profile.
Right, right. Yeah, and it sounds, obvious when we say it out loud to make it about the customer, but unfortunately, that's not always how it plays out. And especially in the technology industry, it can be very easy to get kind of wrapped up in the solutions, the technologies, the systems. But at the end of the day, it's right people selling to people, and those people are professionals that have, a problem that they're looking to solve or something they're looking to make better, and so needing to understand, where they're coming from.
Yeah.
The other area I wanted to ask you more about is around the any cultural shifts on the team, and specifically, as you think about the sales organization, I'm presuming there's some differences in the team that was selling kind of managed IT services versus copy print. How did that come together, and what's happened, I would say, more deliberately in evolving the culture versus kind of just not more naturally?
Yeah. I think if you take a look at Loffler's sales team, it's a very diverse group. A lot of folks have been with us for 15 plus years, and they're very, very good at what they do. And so, for that group of folks, we're introducing new technology, and I would say that they're adapting, and at the same time, we'll be very happy if they can continue to do what they do. But I would also think that we've got a new generation that's coming into the workforce. And if Loffler is going to continue to evolve as an industry-leading technology company, it's built on people. And so we need to make sure that we continue to recruit and employ the very best team members. And so I think for the next generation that's looking to get into technology, I think it's a major advantage for an organization like Loffler to be able to offer those new folks an opportunity that includes not just copy print, but the entire technology solution stack. And I think to give them an opportunity to go out and help a customer in a way that it really is fun, right? We can sit down and we consult with the client on all those different types of technology, and to be an organization that can pull it all together and really drive outcomes that make us a true partner to that organization, I think is something that, as somebody new coming into technology, can be incredibly excited about.
Yeah. Yeah. There is so much changing so fast. So even someone who was the expert, a year ago may not be the expert a year from now, unless you're keeping pace. And so it does present new opportunities for people.
Yeah. And so to answer your question, I guess bluntly, yes, there are different cultures within the organization, and that's okay, right? I think, it's an evolution, not a revolution. And so we're on an evolution where we feel like this program is going to be fantastic for us.
Yeah. I like that you're kind of making room or leaving room for those different cultures and different kind of personalities to fit within the evolution of the company.
Yeah.
As you talk about bringing in new people, how do you find the best people to bring into the organization, the ones that are not just the best at what they do, but the best fit for you?
Yeah. I think we've had the best success with our own internal employees recruiting, friends and colleagues from outside the organization. And so we actually have a pretty nice referral bonus for any employee that refers people in. And I say that's our number one spot. We've got career fairs. I think all of our leadership team does a really nice job of networking within the communities that we serve. And we know that if we can connect with other leaders that share a lot of the same values that we do, they're able to help us find great people when the time comes. So I know even personally myself, I've found some of my best team members through my personal network because they know Loffler's core values and how we operate.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. You talked earlier about the different offices that you have, and I know you've grown in different geographies. So as you think about, all the areas that we've just touched on, the training, the hiring, the communication, what have you done differently between kind of your headquarters and some of the other offices?
Yeah. One of the things that we look for when we acquire, say, a location in Sioux City or Fargo, we start with the people. And we realize that our organization has been built on great people. And it's the first step when we're analyzing a company or a potential acquisition. And so once we've got that part of it down, we start to talk about, the integration. I'll also say that, just to give you a little insight into our culture, one of the things we always talk about with potential acquisition and new team members is that just because we're the company that's acquiring, that doesn't mean that we've got it all figured out. We want to take the best of both organizations and incorporate it to make us even better. And so through these acquisitions, again, it's all about great people, and every one of these locations have some incredible people that have all brought us great ideas that have made us a better company. And so I guess that's how, I don't know if I answered your question on that one or not, but it's definitely been part of our success.
Yeah. It goes back to, I think, the openness that you shared of kind of legacy salespeople and new ones, and knowing that, good ideas can come from anywhere.
Yeah. I guess one other point I could bring up, a lesson learned, is that in some of our early acquisitions, we realized that our people are the ones that had a relationship with our client. And so we really worked hard to keep all of our new team members in place and keep those relationships intact with our customers, because we knew that was the foundation for the success. And then we could bring Loffler's additional resources in play to really support that client and take them to the next level. One of the lessons we learned is that we actually don't want to leave that team 100% isolated. So one of the things we've had a lot of success with is that we'll actually blend teams. Because if we let that team stand on its own, that culture is on its own, and Loffler's culture is on its own. And we want to take the best of both cultures and incorporate that into one culture. And so we've actually blended those teams together. So we'll take resources from headquarters, we'll take resources from, say, Fargo if it's an acquisition, and even other locations, to blend a team to where they're all supporting each other. And we've had a lot of luck creating a really strong culture in those regions that we're doing business in.
I like that. Does that mean that those teams are working more remotely between one another because they're working across geographies? Yeah,
they are. And we're lucky, right? Most of our tools today are cloud enabled, and we've got new tools that we can leverage. But, we also spend a lot of time face to face. We come up with a lot of creative excuses to get people together here at headquarters and even out in the remote branches. I know we've got, I think, close to 40 team members that are making a trek out to our Sioux City location as we celebrate some of the success out there. We've got a technology event going on, and our team is all volunteering in that local market, which just creates a great culture. And quite frankly, we just have a lot of fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
I've had a similar experience. My team, we used to be centered around an office, and then during the pandemic, we went all remote, and our team is mostly in the Northeast, but within a few hour drive of each other. So didn't make sense to reopen an office. And so figuring out how we build and maintain that culture remotely was something very near and dear to me. And so with all of our in-person interactions, I would say we treasure those that much more. And we always make sure we're attaching the business side of the meeting with something fun and team building, and have gotten to know, different sides of people that way.
Yeah, for sure. I know we always talk about with our team that we need to try to be as intentional as possible about, really building on the collaboration part of, I think as leaders, well, we need to collaborate more. Well, what does that mean? And how can we collaborate as a team to actually build on that culture that we all talk about and know that's important?
Right. Yeah, it's easier to use those terms. It's harder to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak,
Exactly.
And make sure that we're putting together the right programs, the right outlets to do that. And remembering that, for us at least, it doesn't all need to be all business, right? We have a monthly, virtual chess tournament. We have different team members kind of sharing their personal passions and doing that over Zoom. And we've done some pretty interesting activities that way. So getting creative and much like you said, letting the team help drive what some of those are.
Yeah, it's great.
So, James, this is so helpful to hear you talk about, how you've reorganized the company and how you're evolving the sales team and organization around that. I know it's something that many companies go through, especially as the business landscape continues to change. And so we need to continue to evolve our businesses around that. So I really appreciate you sharing your experience around that.
Absolutely.
I'd love to now, learn beyond your experience to learn a little bit more about you. So can you tell me, who is James Loffler? What were you like as a kid? How has that shaped who you are today? What did you want to be when you grew up? Tell me about yourself.
Wow. All right. So who is James Loffler? I think, from a fun business standpoint, depending on what profile has taken root in your organization, if it's make a difference, I'm a lion. If it's predictive index, I'm a captain. I think if I think about that, I think I'm different things to different people, right? Or different groups of people. One of the things that comes to mind right away is, for my family. Right now, I've got 3 boys at home, and so I'm a dedicated husband. I'm a dedicated dad. It really prioritizes my kids' time and making the most of the time that I have with them to make sure that they're successful and fulfilled and happy as they grow up. To the Loffler team, I'm a competitive, passionate, I would say, just a humble person that really works hard to build a legacy for the Loffler team. Me, if I'm out by myself or having fun on the weekend, I love new experiences. I love adventure. I love learning new things as I get older, just learning about business and learning about people and learning from others and pushing myself to do new things is something that fills my bucket. As a kid growing up, my mom and dad were actually the founders of Loffler Companies. And so there's no doubt that they've definitely shaped who I am. They both started it in 1986. I was 6 years old at the time, and to see 2 entrepreneurs just go after it and what that looked like back then is a lot of hard work. As a kid, I was shaped by going into the office just about every single weekend, right, to get the extra work done. And so that's an image that I have to this day. My dad is an incredible person that has built the business, and he's built it on hard work, and he's built it on people. And so every single day to get up and work hard. And so I guess that's also been a part of who I am. I like to work hard. I've got an incredible opportunity here at Loffler Companies to kind of lead this organization and build on the legacy that my mom and dad started in 1986. And I'm going to work really hard and do the very best job I can.
I love that. I think, hearing you talk about the legacy that you're continuing from what your parents built is inspiring. And I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old, and my 7-year-old daughter, I think, is an entrepreneur already. And seeing how I can impart what's in kind of my day to day and the lessons that I'm learning in business at such a young age is something that I find very, very rewarding. And I've been proud to say, my kids will be now second summer of selling the bracelets that they make on the beach, and love just seeing that like early, entrepreneurial exposure.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I think I had my 3 boys out and they spread 100 yards of wood chips this past weekend at our Loffler headquarters. So it's good to start to really influence those values at an early age.
Yeah. Instill the work ethic, because ultimately nothing good comes easy, right? Yeah. Are there any, you talked about, new experience, liking to have new experiences and exposure to new things. Is there anything either more recent that you've tried or done, or anything coming up that you're excited about?
Whether it's visiting a new part of the country or the world, I love traveling. It's exciting. A couple of years ago, there was something where I wanted to get my pilot's license, and I thought about it and thought about it. My wife finally said, you've been talking about this for a long time. You should do it. And that's all I needed. So I went out and I got my pilot's license, which was just an incredible experience to go through. It really just reminded me that you really can do anything if you put your mind to it. And there's a lot of stages along the way that I found myself thinking, man, am I ever going to be able to accomplish that? And you keep working and you keep training and you keep practicing, and it happens. And it's just a great reminder. So those are the things that really fill the bucket, I guess, for me.
I love that.
Or mountain biking, or just being active with my kids. I guess there's a lot of, I'm living vicariously through my kids now. I always say it's like Christmas time. You're younger, Christmas is really fun. And then when you have kids, it's amazing again. And so my kids are at an age where, we're just out having a blast together, and teaching them new things and seeing them grow as people is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. I can definitely empathize with that. My daughter just earlier this week tried a circus aerials class. So learning how to climb on those silks and things like that. And I was just noticing as I was watching her how much fun it was just to watch and to some degree live vicariously. But I think it's important to have that balance of, where you get to live vicariously and where you push yourself to try new things like becoming a pilot.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm curious too, James, is there anything that you would say surprises people about you?
I think I'm pretty laid back. I think sometimes maybe people would think that a president of a large organization would be super intense, but I think, at face value, I'm pretty laid back. I like to get to know people and yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. So we've talked a lot about, your leadership, a little bit about your background. I want to ask you one of my favorite questions, which is, what advice would you give your younger self in your first ever leadership role?
It's a good one. It is something that I have done. I do today, but I probably could have leaned in on it even harder earlier, which is surrounding myself with other key leaders, building kind of that circle of support in your business, in the business world. And I know today that's played just a huge role for me personally. As leaders, we all have challenges, and it's our job ultimately to come up with a solution to solve those challenges, and to have a circle of trusted people where you can really go deep and have a trust with, where you can share those things and get great creative solutions, many times they've already gone through those experiences. And so instead of making maybe some mistakes along the way, you can learn from other folks' mistakes. I'd also say that, I'm part of different organizations, whether it be industry peer groups or peer groups that are in completely different industries. It's great to have diversity. You want to have people that see it differently than you do. And so to have those teams of people that bring fresh ideas to opportunities that you have or things you didn't even think about is incredibly beneficial.
I've certainly had that experience myself. I would say, it takes a certain level of maturity to realize that you do want to surround yourself with people that can bring new things to the game and help you kind of up your game and with different skills and experiences. So, we're both part of different peer groups. I get a lot of value from mine, and building out my leadership team was another example of that. And it's just a reminder that, none of us are the expert in all things. None of us have strengths in all areas. And so really looking at where are our strengths, and then how do we surround ourselves with people that are better than us and bring new things to the table in the different areas to augment.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree more.
Thank you, James. That's fantastic advice. And before we sign off, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you?
Absolutely. www.loffler.com.
Great. Thank you. And this was such a great discussion. I really appreciate everything that you shared about all the changes that you've led and the lessons that you've learned along the way. And thank you to everyone who's listening. I know I loved hearing all about the things that James has shared. And if you learned something today, and I'm pretty sure that you did, please tell someone about this episode. Sharing these kinds of insights and information with our peers is how we all get better. Apropos the topic that James and I were discussing just a few minutes ago, and it helps each of us as leaders and really helps us successfully drive change in our companies. So thank you, James. And this has been another episode of Shift and Thrive. Thank you all, and see you next week. That's a wrap for this week's episode. For show notes and more, visit shiftandthrivepodcast.com. A special thank you to our sponsor, Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service marketing agency to help B2B companies fuel their growth. For more information on Magnitude and to get your complimentary transformation readiness assessment, visit magnitudeconsulting.com/getready. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.